This week on the Modified World, we're going to be talking a little bit about upper lip frenulum piercings, aka Smilie piercings, so stay tuned. Welcome to the Modified World. It's the weekly web show about body modification. People who do it, people who get it. Why it matters. I'm your host. I'm JC Potts. I'm the senior piercer at the world-renowned Pangea Piercing in downtown Ann Arbor, Michigan. Purveyor of internet wackiness. I help people learn things and stuff about body mods. This week I've had numerous, and I mean numerous, people ask for a video like this explaining the process and the jewelry and what you have to, the fears and possible problems that you should be looking at as far as getting the little frenulum in your upper lip pierced. And so, I had the opportunity to actually be able to film one, and so I feel like we ought to talk about it. They're relatively newer piercing as far as piercings go. I don't recall them historically ever seeing them, even in the early 90s. I think the first I personally saw was maybe around the year 2000 or so. It's another one of those things where we find out that turns out there's lots and lots of parts on the body that are pierceable. The general look that people are going for is having a little ring that when you smile, it sits right about here. To get that accomplished, there's a little frenulum on the upper lip. When you stretch out your lip, you can kind of see it up here on the top. It's like when you stretch it out, it has nice two sides to it, but when it flattens back out, of course, it spreads significantly, and that can be a deal that, during the healing process can be a little uncomfortable because, of course, since you have large dimensional changes from stretched to relaxed, it causes, even if it's not movement necessarily of the piercing itself, the skin will slide back and forth across the piercing itself. A lot of times when I see them healed, I will see kind of, the evidence of friction damage at both the entry and exit points. But that's kind of a hard one to avoid too, because once again, like I said, when you stretch it out, looks like it's got two nice distinct sides, but when you flatten it back out, those two distinct sides move significantly farther apart and flatten out quite a bit. As far as jewelry goes for these things, I have seen curved barbells in them, but at that, you would never see the piercing. It's completely worthless at that point. So of course you're going to be going with a ring, and a ring is going, or a circular barbell, anything with a round presentation to it. Here's where the problem lies, is the fact that 100% of the time it's laying against the enamel of your teeth. So with all the friction and movement that goes on there and a chunk of metal sitting against your teeth, that's a sure enough recipe for having enamel erosion. And enamel doesn't regenerate. It's gone forever. So generally the only time you're ever going to see people requesting piercings like that are going to be folks who have not reached an age where they're starting to pay for their own dental work yet. Because when you start paying for your own dental work, you start thinking about, what sort of damage is this doing to my teeth? And is that worth it? Not only that, but once you get a little older, you start thinking about the durability of your body a little bit more, because those teeth have to kind of last you for a while. As far as technique goes, it's really not terribly hard. You basically kind of stretch the lip out, get lined up and try to keep it nice and straight, and pierce away. Follow it through with some jewelry, close it up, put the bead in. It seems really, really pretty straightforward, but once again, you need to have enough tissue in there to where it's going to anchor into place really well, not reject or move. And even then, you will still get some folks that will have that piercing reject, even with a significant amount of tissue actually in it. As far as aftercare goes, it's about like how you take care of any tongue piercing. Rinse your mouth out with, an antiseptic mouthwash after you do anything other than smoke or do anything like smoking or having, anything other than clear water in your ice in your mouth for a few weeks until it's totally healed. And you'll be able to tell when that is. That said, all that stuff said, I genuinely hardly ever see anybody keep that piercing more than a year or maybe two, even under the best of circumstances, even if they're really committed to it. I don't think I've ever seen one more than 3 or 4 years old, and it'd be a terrible idea because, like I said, it'll just wear your teeth away. So while I will do them for people, I will give them all the information about how wildly impractical it is. Now, is it as bad as the snake eyes, tip of your tongue piercing? No, that's probably one of the worst ideas in piercing. But it's on that spectrum. It's on that spectrum of, where it's going past the point of fashion, where it's actually going to, on a long enough timeline, be detrimental to your health. I say the ethical way of going about that is to tell a client about all the dangers they face, and I even went as far as to make a video to try to explain it, and then let them make decisions for themselves. Well, I guess that's about it as far as my show this week goes. I hope you learned something. Entertained, maybe? Of course, I try to do this as much as humanly possible. I shoot for at least once a week, sometimes once every other week, but we're doing videos all the time about the legitimate information and good news about body modification. So, if you haven't subscribed yet, you want to. You want to be able to not miss out on what we're talking about, because nobody likes to be thought of as a fool or misinformed or anything like that. And of course, hey, share a video or two too, man. I'll tell you, if you found these videos helpful, well, other people might as well. So, spread the good word a little bit. And of course, stop back by next week. We'll have another episode of The Modified World.